You're listening to the Hockey Podcast Network. New shows every day. Find us at thehockeypodcastnetwork.com or wherever you get your podcasts from.
He is the fantasy novel fanatic, music fest freak, Energizer Bunny, and Steel City resident who is still winging it in Motown. He is Jake Rivard. Jake, how you doing today?
Hey, I'm hanging in there. How about yourself?
I'm doing great. This is always a blast for me because I've got, as our fans know, another journalist that I get to pick their brain. But I think we have some... I think we could find some connections here with some of the things that you're a huge fan of outside of hockey. So I'm gonna try and we'll mix that into the conversation here. So the best way to start that is with our Icebreaker Segment. For anybody who's new to this, here's how it works. Jake, you're gonna get 3 different icebreaker categories. You're gonna let me know which one sounds the most interesting of the categories here. I've had some people decide not to go with particular categories because they felt like it could get them in trouble if they brought it up. I think I've gone pretty soft here though, so we'll do this.
It looks like a
3
game
categories.
Show.
Yeah, one of these days I got to pay for some good game show music to be playing in the background.
Gotta get the whole suit and everything, the real fanfare.
Exactly. I did give that a go before. YouTube, even though it was music I paid for, they still sent out the copyright claim, and it was about 2 weeks before I could actually have the video back up on YouTube. So I was like, yeah, it's just not worth it. Any hoozles. 3 categories. First one, Fantasy World. Second category, Thanksgiving Feast. And third category, Gaming Desert Island.
All right. Oh, that's a tough one. You know, as much as I'd like to get into the fantasy world, that could take this entire podcast. So what I'm going to do is Gaming Desert Island. All
right. So this one's probably self-explanatory from the start. You're on a desert island. I have a couple of rules here. You can take 3 games with you. You can play online, but no one will ever believe your pleas for help. So you don't have to... Yeah, you can chat with buddies, but whatever game you want to pick. But yeah, what would those 3 games be? I did see on your own profile that you are a gaming fan. So I'm gonna guess there could be some hockey, some NHL, some Chell mixed in there, but no pressure. Whatever those 3 games would be.
My deal with Chell is,
By the way, it hurts me to say Chell.
Oh, it hurts me too. I like playing Chell, but I only like to play with like local friends. Because online you get those skill levels where you're like, how long have you been playing this game? 1, and how in the hell are you this good?
Yeah.
We had a rule at my old house in college, actually. If you beat somebody by 10 goals or more, they had to call your mom and apologize for wasting your time. I have never had to call somebody's mom, knock on wood, but I have had friends call a couple times. Tom, if you're hearing this, you still owe me that final call. Henrik Lundqvist led in 30 goals on that game. Not a great night for the old guy.
Oh my gosh.
But anyway, to be honest, I'm kind of I'm a single player guy. I'd say my 3 games are Legend of Zelda: The Wind Waker, old GameCube classic. The Witcher 3. I mean, I love dark fantasy. I love fantasy in general, and that game very special place in my heart.
I don't know. I don't know if you could see this. I got this whole top shelf of the bookshelf is. You know what? There's a Ninja Turtle up there.
Beautiful! I see Geralt back there.
But yeah, that's my Witcher section. That's
beautiful. I just bought all the books actually recently. So.
Oh, nice! Yeah, you're in for a fun ride.
Oh yeah. And then as far as the third game goes. That's a tough question. I was literally just talking about this. Maybe I'll continue the fantasy trend. Dragon Age Origins. That is a game I played a lot in high school. Classic. Can never get tired of that one.
Those are fantastic picks. My 3 also includes The Witcher. I played The Witcher 3 while that was my introduction to the whole world of Geralt and I've gone through those books maybe 7 or 8 times.
Oh, they're spectacular.
And yeah, I mean, it's turned into one of those things that I also have the audiobooks ready to go. So if I'm going on a long walk and I've got the kiddos, boom, that thing's going on.
You know what? I actually might change the third game now that I'm thinking about it. And this
Yeah.
might make a couple gamers angry.
Go for it.
Either one of the Last of Us games. Those
Very nice.
are profound in levels that I've never quite understood, especially 2. Don't get mad at me, gamers.
I'm going to critique that choice only from the sense that I cannot pick up The Last of Us 2 again. It's one of those that I listened. There was a podcast that came out that you could accompany your playthrough with the podcast. So I listened to it at the same time I was playing. And The Last of Us 1 is probably my favorite game of all time. It's up there, but I struggle to play that one again. The Last of Us 2 crushed me so hard, which it should have. That's what they wanted to do. And it's honestly one of the best stories in video games ever told, but I cannot get myself to put it back in the PlayStation.
It affected me in such a way that I actually got a moth tattoo.
Wow,
it's hard to see on
nice.
Yeah.
I've got some buddies that are like kind of slow at pulling the trigger on some new games. So one of my best buds just finished playing it. And I mean, we've had the same conversation of just like, I loved it. I don't know if I'll ever play it again. It hurts.
I mean,
so much.
it's like reading Dune or the Lord of the Rings series. You make it through and you're like, I did it. I'm not doing that again.
I don't know if I could deal with the pain again. And I would say my 3 games, I did say whatever was the most recent NHL game only because I do find myself addicted to it, and I will play I don't even play online. I just play franchise mode. I play the 25 years every year.
Me too.
And I
turned Michael Rasmussen into like a 150 point scorer. Like signed him to like an 8-year, $1 million deal.
Very nice. Yeah. You got to get that going early. I think I got pretty lucky locking up for this most recent game. Mo Sider, he's such a doofus. Got him for 8 years, $3 million.
Oh,
a complete fool.
Screwed that one up.
Third game for me is Red Dead Redemption 2. I don't know if you've had the joy of just walking around and fishing and walking through town.
I got a coat that I wear. It's the most Arthur Morgan looking coat I've ever seen. My buddies and I can do perfect impressions of the characters. I got my Arthur Morgan down pat, so could do that another time. But
it's been a while for me. But it now that you say it, it's like, yep.
Yeah, sure.
I guess I've got the micro impression down. Just the yep. All right. No, those are very good picks. Like I actually going through your profile, I was trying to think what was Jake going to go through, but I like those picks very much. And I would say if you went with 4 and brought Dragon Age Origins, that would be right up there for me too.
Of course.
All right. So next section here, I gotta say this is me doing this is comparable to like Andy Kaufman and how he would do his own comedy routines just for himself. Nobody was laughing, just for him.
I love it.
So usually this section, I'm guessing, is just for me, but we're going to jump into journalism, your stylings. And as we mentioned before we even started, I had an absolute wonderful middle of my day going through some of your satire work. I was quite a big fan of Drake and Baby Yoda meeting today.
You know, funny enough, that actually went viral when it first came out. I was getting shared. I was getting shared like crazy. Like people I've never met were sharing it. It was blowing up on Reddit. I think we got like 200,000 views in the first 24 hours. Yeah, no, it was insane.
That's fantastic.
I was seeing I went to a party later that week and somebody mentioned the article to me. They're like, bro, look how funny this is. And I was like, look at the name. And then I like held up my license. I'm like, look.
No, I was. I mean, that's fantastic. I was thrilled that my Nemestikov gift got shared a couple of times today. But I would be. I'd already been to the moon. I don't know if I could make it back. That is fantastic.
I'm still floating out in space somewhere.
I got not. I guess this sounds kind of silly now that I'm bringing this up. But I just for the sake of letting you know how impressed I am. Like there's a fan fiction I wrote all the way back in my high school days. It was this might actually lose me some subscribers. You're gonna be like, wait, we've been listening to this guy. It was Wolverine and Nightcrawler from the X-Men with Marty McFly and Doc Brown with mixed with an anime, and
Whoa.
it's still my claim to fame with my like, yeah, I used to do some creative writing, because I will say once a year I still get an email for somebody asking for the next chapter of it, which I don't have. There's no motivation there anymore.
I was gonna say, yeah, when are you working on it?
Just these damn kids, you know. But I gotta say, I it's probably jealousy, but that's where this whole section of the podcast comes from. Whenever I do these interviews, is that I want to pick the mind of the person who went into the field that I abandoned, journalism. So let me ask the question. Based on your stylings, clearly humor is a huge part of your work. Man, I even loved. God, the little Meyer ads that you did with the text messages back and forth were, I mean,
classic football breakup ad.
Yeah, that was fantastic. So based on that idea, but now we're finally going to mix in some Red Wings hockey. How important is it, do you think, to mix in, especially during a rebuild, to have some levity, have some humor for this, to make sure that one, you're bringing in a readership, like you need a fan base, you need a readership base to keep coming back, but two, to make sure that what's the nice way I could say this, that we're not giving up on the Red Wings. There we go. I was gonna say something awful there a second ago, but let's keep it clean.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's very easy to get caught in the like spiral of negativity, especially when you're losing 6-1 to the Montreal Canadiens. With not a great feeling, especially when the Montreal Canadian fans are very, very loud on the internet, as I'm sure many of us are witness to. So the best thing to do is to respond with a little bit of levity. Things can feel dark, but the best thing to do is find something to laugh about, because I promise you, there's always something to laugh about. Even if that something is a ridiculous play like Mr. Stuart Skinner last night, and his, I mean, I swear to God, it looked like you were playing a video game and he like clipped through the net. Like, I was like, what? How did you get back there? What is Larkin doing? Like, what happened here?
Yeah,
I'd say. Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say I did enjoy that. I think we all had that same thought, because I have a couple of buddies through the Hockey Podcast Network that were immediately seeing the video of him making that. It's just, it's not even a boneheaded mistake. It's just, I mean, it's out of nowhere. It's a complete like. It's outside of that spectrum, right? Like it's nothing good, but it's not a complete error, because it's never going to happen again in his career.
It's one of those things where you just like can't help but laugh at it. Like, even if the Red Wings are on like the receiving side of something bad, you're like, all right, well, that was pretty funny looking back. One of my mottos in life is like, if you're going through something hard or tough, it's probably going to be a funny story later. My favorite funny story is, and I promised myself I wasn't going to talk about this, but I may have accidentally booked a moving company that was a front for the mafia. And I had my things basically held hostage for almost 2 months. Wound up getting them all back. And at the time, it was the most miserable experience. But boy, is it funny now.
Well, yeah, I will respect the idea that you did not even want to bring it up. So we'll save all the follow-up questions and make sure that the mafia doesn't come looking for you. But yeah, I think for me it's something where I enjoy your writing, and you attach yourself to these stylings just because it is if we're trying to watch these things, we're not trying to get like more real, right? We're not trying like life. In the end of the day, there's a lot of beauty in it, but there's a lot of tragedy as well. So we're looking to sports to find some sort of escape. So I think the last thing we want to do is just have it go too far into doom and gloom. And I've said multiple times since this podcast started with my brother and I that we have the easiest job in the entire hockey podcast network, and among the hundreds of hockey podcasts out there. Of course, there's quite a few Red Wings ones, but we have right now, I feel, the easiest job. And it's because we've chosen not to delve too deep in all the negatives and instead have fun. And when you play it like that, you really you can't lose right now. There's zero stress. I mean, the 7 wins we have right now are just gravy on top of gravy. Like it's beautiful, it's wonderful. We get to celebrate right now. Maybe
It's like it's like tipping at a fancy restaurant, or I don't know,
yeah.
tipping at a McDonald's. Actually,
There
that's
you
more
go.
accurate. Never expected, always appreciated.
Exactly.
Tip your
So
servers, even at fancy restaurants, by the way, guys.
absolutely. Yeah, come on. What is up with you bums? So yeah, I don't know if I think I failed you as well as a host earlier because I mentioned that you were a Steel City resident who's still winging it in Motown. So if nobody got what I was going for there, of course you are writing for Winging It in Motown. So that's what I want to do is actually come to your first, or I should say your latest couple of works, because Michael Rasmussen got mixed in there, and
I think I might have a superpower. Like,
yeah.
I don't know what it is, and don't assume anything out of me because I'm not a wizard, but I've now written 2 articles that have become reality. One one was at the start of the season. I wrote a letter to Mrs. Blashill requesting that Lucas Raymond start the season. Lucas Raymond starts the season. The second, I write about Michael Rasmussen and how he needs to pick up his game. Last night he has the best game he's had all season. You're welcome, Hockey Town.
No,
Let me know what else you guys need.
Yeah, we thank you. What we need is Tyler Bertuzzi's 30% shooting percentage to continue. So if you could send a letter on over, yeah. Now, I am one who feels like I do those same things, or I'm in this world of if I complain about a player, they start going in the right direction, and then I look like an a-hole. So I will say and admit I've been complaining about Michael Rasmussen for quite a while. So I've been reading your articles as scripture lately. So
see, and the thing is, like, I guess I'm not like upset with him. I'm just disappointed.
Oh yeah,
I know I'm gonna go full dad here. I think he's gonna be fine. He's gonna be a good 3rd line center, but like he's clearly missing some sort of layer of confidence. There's something he's gotta that'll come back to normal eventually, but right now he's in the pits, We've all been there, but whatever it is, he's got to kick it back into high gear. And hopefully yesterday's game was a good indication of that. Zach, go ahead.
I thought it was interesting. I went and took a look at back at the old draft prospectus for Rasmussen and listing some of the cons. And what I also noticed in your article was something that was pointed out were some of the failings right now. But if you just watch Rasmussen's game right now, I feel like he kind of is guilty of these. When it was last season, I thought he was pulling away from it. But stick handling seems to be an issue from at least before the last couple of games. There are a lot of turnovers. It just looked like it was a little sluggish with the decision making on what was going to happen as he took over for an offensive possession. The other side of it has been the skating, which was a huge complaint before he got drafted, and something that actually found one prospectus in particular said that Rasmussen was definitely going to be a late 1st round draft pick due to his skating ability. Of course, we know he didn't go late in the 1st round, but
I got
I
a really
just
fun thing for you guys.
yeah.
Any listeners, actually, you may as well do this as well. If you guys really want to have a great time, go look up the 2017 NHL draft and tell me how many of them wound up becoming full-time NHL players. In fact, better yet, take a look and see how many of them wound up playing in the AHL. You guys are gonna love it. It's gonna be great.
I did actually. I tried to find this morning. I went through Evolving Hockey to like put together this list of who's got like a good points per 60. And most of the guys that would be, you would make the argument. Let's take him over Rasmussen. They're already drafted, so there was no chance of you getting a Rasmussen. But maybe 6 guys right now, which of those 6 guys, they've all played less games than Rasmussen, so there's even a smaller sample size to go by those 6 names.
Right.
So to your point, I mean, it's still a crapshoot. It's just my fear isn't necessarily about we shouldn't have drafted him. I just worry that he's falling into issues that he had in years past when we saw him get away from those issues. So I'm more along the line, and it's probably where your head's at as well. Is that this is something that is completely mental, and there's got to be some way to break out of it, and you got to hope that a game like, even if there were still some mistakes, but if he could put a couple of assists on the board, that's the type of thing that he needs to see to get this thing going in the right direction.
And a big problem that I noticed was mostly related to, how he played in the WHL compared to how he plays now. In the WHL, he was a giant. He was dominating people with his size, his strength, and his skill. Nobody could stand a chance against him. But in the NHL, it feels like a lot of people have figured out how to counteract somebody that tall. Because, there are plenty of tall guys in the NHL. You got Zdeno Chara, who literally has to get a custom-made stick because of how tall he is. I think that Rasmussen's having some trouble translating the strength he had in the juniors to the professional level, especially against guys like, I think this happened a couple games ago against David Savard. Savard is probably over half a foot shorter than Rasmussen and was just dummying him on the ice, like manhandling the guy. And with the way Rasmussen's built, he should be just knocking over Savard like he's nothing. But I think it's confidence, and like he's got to trust his own body. Because he did it against Edmonton. I think he like held off either McDavid or Draisaitl for like a long time, and I was very impressed with it.
Yeah, I mean that was like I know which play you're talking about. I could picture it. It was like an old stiff arm, in Madden football. I mean, he just was, get out of the way. I'm making space right now, and I'm holding on to the puck.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, not that this is completely the direction I want to go in with the Rasmussen conversation, but yeah, there were times against Edmonton where I was shocked at how often like any line that wasn't our first line was just ragging the puck in the offensive zone. Just to break down a quick list, I thought Giovanni Smith showed a lot of his stick handling was just something we hadn't seen all season yet, and it was just like all of these guys, Ernie, Rasmussen, Giovanni Smith were like the 3 guys where I was like, holy shit, these guys want to win this game. This is something where they're not going to let this get out of hand. They absolutely need to take this one away from Connor McDavid. It seems like that was the go-to there. But yeah,
even like Danny DeKeyser shut down Connor McDavid. Yeah.
That was best play of the season from DeKeyser.
That was the best player in the entire NHL going head to head against Connor McDavid and winning.
I did see on Twitter, and I hope this wasn't you, because I'm gonna feel like a complete ass right now. But it was mentioned how Connor McDavid had no problem cutting through 4 different New York Ranger defenders, but he has a problem cutting through a Danny DeKeyser who's held together by duct tape and spit. Yeah, there's something about that. I think if we go back and think about the Red Wings of, our Stanley Cup years and how many times we would go down to a team that, going into the night, you just be like, all right, well, this is an easy win. I don't need to focus too hard on this one. And then we blow it. And it's because we kind of overlooked an opponent. the Red Wings have had a fantastic start, but I would not for a second think like this, that wasn't a possibility last night. And what the Red Wings did was completely come into that game saying we're gonna kick the shit out of Edmonton, and Edmonton might have come in thinking this will be a little bit easier than we think.
And you know what? They almost had it near the end there.
Yeah,
if it wasn't for Nedeljkovic bailing him out multiple times, points where he should not have had to do that, I think Edmonton would have gone away with that win. If it were Greiss in the net, I'd be a little more worried. But yeah. Nedeljkovic is he reminds me of like Mike Vernon, where he plays super aggressive to the point where like I am both excited to watch him and also my blood pressure is just shooting through the roof whenever he does something crazy.
Like the stick handling turned into like a point of conversation for Mickey Redmond early in the season, and that was when like I was really working out my glutes. That was really clenching there every time he was coming out. Yeah. In
the words of Mickey, boy oh boy.
Yeah, I'm cracking walnuts now. But I thought it was crazy last night. Ozzy's in the booth. Not crazy in like a negative way, but Ozzy sees a lot of the dominator in Nedeljkovic, and a lot of that goes along the aggressive play, and probably more specifically just going out for the poke check, which we remember seeing Hasek do that all the time, and just like going, oh fuck.
I saw Anti-Ranta try to do that a little earlier this season. That was a little scary.
And those moments I think are how you can get closer into like that dominator conversation. But yeah, I guess I'm getting lost in my own point here, but ultimately like Nedeljkovic is having these flashes to get the both of us to mention names like Vernon and Hasek, where I think the fact that we didn't give up much, we're not paying him much, should still feel pretty good for everybody right now.
He's like what I wanted Peter Mrazek to be.
Ooh,
yeah,
I like that.
Think about that one a bit.
I'm sure the Maple Leafs would appreciate a Nedeljkovic
right now. They've heard him like 3 times now. He's like I texted my buddy who's a Maple Leafs fan, and I'm like, you guys got to take care of him. And then a week later, I'm like, what the hell are you guys doing?
Yeah, it's one of those things. I think with Mrazek, I fell in love with him hard and quickly, and it was one. Of course, who wouldn't, right? With those first round playoff series. But you know what? What am I doing? We don't want to talk about Mrazek. That's not what we're here to talk about. I want to get back to that article where we were talking about Michael Rasmussen. It was you had your 3 guys that I always put it as like are in danger of the law of averages catching up. And that's like a game we play on our podcast all the time. So I think your list of positives, Bertuzzi, Nemestikov, and Gustav Lindstrom.
I think they're overperforming, and they're going to come back down to earth, unfortunately.
Exactly. And then on the other side, we've got Rasmussen, as previously mentioned, and then 2 out of 3 guys on the second line being Puce and Zadina. So I guess what I wanted to bring, also tell everybody, go check out this article on Winging It in Motown. But if you were going to put a finger on it, and we're going to look at the narrative of things here, clearly, like the analytics tell us that things are going to go, or eventually should go, in the other direction for all 6 of these guys. Like things should start to work out the way they're supposed to. Which one of these guys do you think is going to break the law of averages? Or I shouldn't even put it that way. It's just looking at how they've played so far. Is there someone in danger of never breaking this underperformance, or is there someone who's going to just knock it out of the park and will be our overperformer for the full year? If you had to pick one of these 6 guys, who would it be?
I think you could get one from each category. I guess my first thing I'd like to point out is with a lot of the things that I write, I try to blend the what I call is making the eye test and analytics kiss, where some people can get too hung up on one or the other. Looking at you, Pierre Maguire. I like to walk the line between the two and tell the full picture rather than paint a muddy one. So in this instance, I guess in terms of somebody who I think will continue to keep up close to the level that they have. Honestly, out of the three of them, Gustav Lindstrom. He's shown to be a pretty capable third pairing defenseman. He's got good possession numbers. If he can keep those possession numbers up and maybe generate a little bit more offense, I could see him rounding out to being like a Troy Stetcher type player. A number 5, number 4 guy at best, which is not a bad thing by any means. As far as the underperformers go, the one that I think I'm the most worried about out of all three of them, because the thing is, like, I think they're all going to round out to some level or another. I think Rasmussen's probably the least likely one to have close to a bounce back. His ice time is being cut. He's on the fourth line now. There was a call a couple games ago that Ken Daniels had where Rasmussen had the puck, and he goes, Rasmussen passes it to no one. Yep, the puck went the opposite way in the middle of the ice during a very crunch period, from what I recall. It's not that I don't think he's going to be a fine player. I think he's going to top out with a career high of close to 40, 45 points, averaging around a 30, 35 point type player. I think he's going to become more of a defensive type center. I've heard a lot of people compare him to Jordan Staal, but like Jordan Stahl's really good. And I think Rasmussen's going to be like, all right, he'll be all right. But like Jordan Staal is the first line center of the Carolina Hurricanes, who have lost, I think, 1 game this season. Like, come on. Like, we got to get a little more realistic here.
Yeah, that's always the fun game that we all play as hockey fans. Is there's no such thing on anybody else's team but the first line. So
yeah, right. Dylan Larkin's going to be Patrice Bergeron. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, of course.
It's already been written, I think.
You remember that old Bleacher Report article that was like, why Danny DeKeyser is going to be the next Nick Lidstrom? Think about that one for a little bit, guys.
I mean, we're already playing that game with Simon Edmondson too. I think that just follows along that same thought pattern of there's only first liners, there's only first pairing defensemen. Everyone else just disappears eventually. It's the Thanos snap, just over time. Yep. But I want to get back on Lindstrom. I think that's a great pick because probably the ask of Lindstrom isn't going to increase too much as we go through the season. We're only going to be asking Hronek to play better than the absolute shit that was a 30% expected goals for percentage through 13, 14 games now.
Not very lit, Hronek.
Right. And for Lindstrom, it's not something I think he's going to jump up to the second pairing. So I think that's a fantastic pick. I will say I've been kind of bummed since his return. It does look like he's a little timid. I remember seeing a guy who was a little bit more aggressive before the injury. So now that he's come back, I don't know. It doesn't look like the same Gustav. And I really can only pinpoint like one hard shot that came from a one-timer off the point over the last couple of games that he's been back.
I'm sure he's just getting his sea legs. You know how that goes.
I'm hopeful. I just, it's always one of those things where you talk about the mental game. The last thing you want to see is a pattern be built after an injury. So I've been super high on Lindstrom. We've devoted entire episodes to how well he's playing, which, doesn't do great on YouTube because nobody's searching that. But you know what? We persevere. We storm on ahead and we say Gustav's our man. I want to throw now. We were such huge fans of Gustav at the start here, and we've been trying to find a replacement for DeKeyser. I want to ask you your hockey opinion. Now, I didn't give you any notion that I was going to ask you this question, but the perspective of putting a defenseman on the wrong side, putting Lindstrom on the left side to try and figure out the problem with to just flesh out what we have on the left side for all of our defensive pairings. I think Osterley, for some reason, I pegged him as a left side defenseman. He's been a right side defenseman to start the season, so technically wrong side for him. Can we get a DeKeyser popped out insert a Lindstrom, or is that too taboo? Am I going too far into taboo area by putting a technically right side defenseman on the wrong side?
Well, that depends. Are you thinking of putting DeKaiser on the first or Lindstrom on the first line in DeKaiser's place, or are you thinking of slotting him in and kind of distributing his minutes, DeKaiser's minutes between a bunch of other defensemen?
It's got to start with either finding Cider a better partner, which I think you could just put Lindstrom with somebody with a little more experience with Hronek on the right side, and then we move Letty back up to that pairing that was a 66% expected goals for percentage, and have Letty and Cider back together. I think it's the direction my brain wants to go first.
I remember a game where they had Osterley and Cider together, and if I remember correctly, that was a pretty good pairing. Like they weren't too bad together. I guess it'll depend on the old Blashill blender.
Yeah.
That guy doesn't like to sit still with the same lines for more than like 30 seconds. I mean, he literally started last game with Raymond on the bench and Bertuzzi, Larkin, and Sam Gagne. So the guy is just he's gonna switch up everything regardless. I think I'd like to see it at some point, and I imagine they'll experiment with that. But I think they see what's working right now and they're liking it. And they're running with it. I'm just hoping that they find some space to put Osterley in place of DeKaiser soon.
Yeah, it's one of those things too where do we really expect to win a cup this year? No. So you really just play the game. Do we just wait till the end of the season and then bid adieu to old DK? But
the old Jonathan Erickson treatment.
Just hang on to it and hold your breath, and then it'll be done. But I mean, I guess it all started, this whole conversation on our show and with our listeners. It all started because we saw Hronek get the couple of games of being a healthy scratch, and it's just like, well, why don't we try something else just for funsies? Why not? All right, moving on. I absolutely agree with the Rasmussen pick there. Well, I guess going into the Blashill blender, I joked today about how long is it going to take before we start seeing the Blashill for Jack Adams conversation? Like, how long does this pace? How long would this need to continue? Right? For that first article to come out, for us to be above 500 in points percentage, we are it's a $68 million cap hit right now. We're without one of our top 6 forwards, and most would have made the argument we were, going to be pretty far down in the standings. Really, I wanted to bring this up because I feel like Blash does take a lot of hate. And on our show, as our listeners know, we do try to maybe not put up too hard of a fight, but I do think a lot of Blashill's failings have had to deal with, or have been dealing with the lack of talent on the team. And now all of a sudden there's talent and we look okay. So I guess I want to get your opinion, because I every guest we have on here, I bug them. I couldn't get Max Boltman to say, to go further into the idea that, yeah, he's, the team looks better. I got Devin from the Hockey Writers to kind of go in that direction. But I'm here to say, I think our show's official stance is this team looks better than last year, and there should be I would say a significant amount of credit thrown at Jeff.
I will say this first off, relating to the Jack Adams. If all the Jack Adams entailed was winning coaches challenges, he would be a perennial Scotty Bowman tier coach, like without a doubt in my mind, because that man is an elite coaches challenger.
Well, we gotta come up with like call Prashant and have him generate an Excel spreadsheet that scores everything, and just make sure that's given the most weight. That you increase that weighted average for those challenges. We got him.
Yeah, my model says that he's like really, really good in that department. I mean, the biggest critique that I had, and I believe many fans have had, is that he hasn't had that talent in front of him. He hasn't been able to work with a talented enough roster to really make an impact. And the big thing I was hoping for this year is that now that he's got a little bit of talent, let's see what he does with it. So far, I think he's done a good job. I mean, it's hard to do with a team that is still lacking talent in a lot of areas.
Right.
We still don't have, and I might get some hate for this, an elite first line center.
Right.
Mort Seider has the potential to become a top number one D man, but he's not there yet. He's only 20. The goaltending, I like Nedeljkovic, but he's only just recently started to heat up. And then you've got your, the depth to consider. There's still a lot of questions that need to be answered, but with the pieces that Blashill has, he's done a good job. However, many of the teams that we've had these big victories against, that the Wings have had big victories against, have been deploying either backup goaltenders or sitting a lot of their, or dealing with injuries or sitting key players. For example, the game against Vegas, they had Laurent Brossoit, who I don't think has ever maintained a starter's role. They had injuries to their entire top line, so you don't have Max Pacioretty, Mark Stone, or newcomer Jack Eichel. They were just depleted on talent, so it's no wonder the Wings feasted on them. It seems like teams are still planning to take the night off against the Wings, and their successes I think have been good. Raymond's been good, Seider's been good, but it's important to note the quality of competition they've been up against.
Absolutely. I mean, for me, I still come back and I would say to Jeff's credit, I mean, he's still dealing with that a roster that is the second lowest salary cap hit, and I guess just to make that extra defense. I mean, if these teams are still coming in and saying, we don't have to put in our starting goaltender tonight, he can get that rest. It's still a question of, what did that goaltender do that night? And if, we say that, Skinner actually ended up with a pretty good goal saved above expected. So he turned in a pretty decent game despite that one blunder that, again, will that ever happen to another goaltender the rest of NHL's existence? Maybe once or twice. So I would still say, like, you got to play who's in front of you. If you're going to get the victories as opposed to the losses. And one of the fights we always make on our show is things could always be worse. Like we could be still getting the same treatment from across the NHL, but they could have all been losses. It could have been some of those things where we have those overtime wins where it did go the other direction, or maybe we never did come back against the Washington Capitals kind of thing. We didn't come back against Buffalo.
2019-20. We all know what bad looks like.
Right. So I guess it for me, I still got to give Jeff the nod because it is things like making sure that Lucas Raymond and Bertuzzi and Larkin aren't stifled by the strategy they used last season, which was limit chances across the board. He's certainly let the boys go a little bit. And even to that effect, he knows where the talent's at, and pointed out by others way smarter than me last night was his decision to make sure that Larkin was on Connor McDavid every time that he hit the ice. And Larkin just decided to secretly have one of the best defensive starts to a season with one of the like a top 10 ranking in expected goals against per 60 for all starting centers, or first line centers, I should say. And just to like make that easy choice, but to know that there was an easy choice and he goes with it, and to try and shut down McDavid as best as possible. It's just one of those things where I'm feeling better about Jeff this season. Of course, winning always, it helps everything. It helps your thought process about a lot of different facets of any franchise. But I still, I'm not ready to, I said in just like in our pregame notes or our pre-discussion notes, the Jack Adams isn't just, but clearly I think I still want to give Jeff a bit of a nod, if not only because he has received so much negativity over the last couple of years that I would say, maybe I would say 40% of it is deserved and 60% of it might go closer to the talent level. But I'm in the minority, I think, in that discussion. But that's where I'll still land. Jeff gets a thumbs up from old Matt.
Right on.
Now, I want to get back to Verana as kind of like our last topic here. Team is 40 games now, or I should say between now and a potential Verana return, which would be the start of March. I would say that's even conservative considering they said 4 months. He could come back in February. But anyway, let's say it's 40 games. It's going to leave 28 games left. You're going to have a freshly rehabbed Jakub Verana. In your mind, in those 40 games, is there any shot that Verana's coming back and we're looking at a 28 game playoff push with maybe we're outside of the playoff picture, but is there any shot we're still sniffing that and this Jakub Verana return is going to be the most exciting thing in Detroit sports at the time?
I mean, as optimistic as I'd like to be, it's important to consider the division we're in.
Right.
You've got the Stanley Cup winning Tampa Bay Lightning, the Florida Panthers, who have lost only once, and that time was in overtime. You've got the Toronto Maple Leafs, who had a rough start, but are really starting to pick it up now. I think they're streaking right now. You've got the Boston Bruins, who, I mean, they just completely decimated the Red Wings a couple of games ago. And you've even got teams like Montreal that have had Detroit's number this entire season, clearly wanting to get revenge after the 2+ years of, never beating Detroit.
Right.
Ottawa's gotten better. Buffalo has surprised. Yeah. I don't think Detroit's going to be in the basement of the division, but I think that it's very unrealistic to think that this team is a playoff team, unfortunately.
So anybody that would disagree with that notion, I think, we're just, you're really enjoying what's going on right now a little too much.
Oh, it's great.
Yeah. But to that end, because I would agree with you. So that puts us on the cusp of a trade deadline. I actually
this is where things start to get interesting, in my opinion. You've got Verana coming back, and you've got these 6 players on the top 2 lines that have either done a good or great job. Verana's going to come back, and you're not going to move Zadina down to the 3rd line. Obviously, Verana's not going to make it on that 1st line, given how well Bertuzzi and Raymond are playing. When you get him on the 2nd line, are you really going to move down Fabry, who's had a spectacular start to the season? Somebody who's outworked some of the best players in the NHL? I don't know. I don't think so. And you're not going to put Verana on the 3rd line. Something's got to give. Somebody might need to go. I don't know who it is. And then that's you don't even consider Joe Veleno, who is knocking on that NHL door every game in the NHL. What do you do? Who's the odd man out,
Yeah, I think I'm pulling up the cap friendly page. So we'll go over this. I mean, you've got your Robbie Fabbris. Nemistikov right now would be like a hot button issue to discuss trade value. I gotta think at that point, if we're outside of the playoff picture, which again is where everybody's head should be at, I think we're saying goodbye to Fabry. I think that's where you get most back.
My initial thought was one of the members of the core being Larkin, Fabry, Hronek, and Bertuzzi is going to get traded, and I don't think it's going to be Bertuzzi.
I would say this too. I don't want to lose any subscribers when I throw this out there. Zadina's got a contract coming up too. You're going to be in this situation where I think we can all see the talent. The finish just hasn't been there, which I mention all the time on the show. We're talking about a game with a fucking rubber puck and we're on ice skates and the puck bounces across an icy surface and you just can't always predict what's going to go on despite a guy putting up some good numbers from advanced analytics perspective. There's also a lot of good wingers in the next couple of drafts coming up. There's a lot of opportunity there.
I mean, I think Zadina is going to be just fine. It's just a matter of him getting that finishing. He is shooting with a ridiculously low shooting percentage.
I mean, do you think there's a trade out there that's good enough that we say goodbye to Zadina?
I'm going to say that pretty much every Red Wing is on the trading block besides Larkin, Sider, and Raymond. If there's a good enough offer for Zadina, I think he might be shipped off. But it's going to need to be a very good offer. I don't see Yzerman making a trade without getting quite a bit back in return. Sorry, Rangers fans. I don't think you guys are going to get Larkin without giving up Lafreniere plus.
I couldn't believe that conversation even started.
Well, that's
not
been
with
going
us
on
right now, but on Twitter. Yeah. No, and I guess I bring that up too because we always make the argument that there shouldn't really be anybody safe on this roster until things are proven and locked in. Because why would we give up on any opportunity to continue to build this team? But that's not in regards to the Larkin conversation, but definitely more in regards to Zadina. If somebody sees that maybe we're doing something wrong with developing him and they want to try and fix it, but the only way they can get that opportunity is to make Steve happy, I think that's a legitimate conversation. But yeah, I mean, long story short, I mean, clearly Fabry and Nemistikov for me are probably on the chopping block first. Those are the ones that aren't really going to hurt as much. The pain won't be as severe. But no, yeah, I do always try to say, and I think it's a good bring up humor and levity. It's a good way to go through the rebuilding process with a team. You also got to be pretty flexible. Don't buy too many jerseys during the rebuild because you don't know what's going to happen.
That poor woman on Twitter who bought the Bobby Ryan jersey the day before.
Yeah,
he didn't get his PTO.
I'm a huge fan of hers, so
she's great.
She might be listening. So I think I sent my sympathies her way. That broke my heart. I mean, losing Bobby Ryan with his story breaks your heart on its own. All right, so I guess wrapping up here, I do want to let you plug some stuff if you have any articles coming out, but also any final thoughts you want to make sure the Red Wings fans. We haven't really left them with the most glowing image of the rest of the season, which is, I think it's the responsible thing to do. But anything you want to part Red Wings fans with as we sail off into the sunset here?
Yeah. So actually, Steve Yzerman started the season with a press conference, and what he said was that the scorecards don't matter. The wins and loss records are not an important factor for this season. So it's important for everyone watching the games to remember that. I know it's exciting to think about the playoffs and think about the future. What we should be paying attention to right now are the kids and the future of this rebuild. When this is a great time to, instead of rooting for the Wings pushing for the Stanley Cup, maybe root for Raymond to get the Calder, maybe root for Sider to get the Calder, maybe root for the two of them to split it together.
Yeah.
Root for Berggren to make a push, Veleno to make a push, Edvinsson to have a great season. This is the start of something great. And this is a very exciting season and a great time to be a fan of the Detroit Red Wings. Anyway,
no, that was perfect. That is the direction to make this a little bit more positive so that we don't tell everybody to give up hope.
Oh, of course. But, I mean, you're going to look back on this season and you're going to remember this being like the start of the next big thing. Just remember that. If times get dark during the season, if we experience another Montreal pain fest on Saturday, just remember that it isn't about them. It was never about them.
I like that was a good one. But yeah, anything coming out for Winging It in Motown? And where can we find you on Twitter?
Yes, of course. You can find me on Twitter at Rivard NHL. That's RIVARD NHL. Find me on there. I upload at least a week's worth of content every week. Week's worth of content. But anyway, I've got some stuff coming up soon. I finished my most recent piece, the Underperforming, this week. Next week, I think we're going to analyze a little bit more of that problem we were talking about regarding Vrana. Who's going to go? Who's next on the list? Then down the road, I'm gonna lean into a little bit more on Joe Veleno, maybe a little prospect roundup, see how the kids are doing. So if you like any of those things, or if any of that sounds appealing, feel free to drop me a follow, shoot me a message. I'm more than happy to hear your thoughts, to get to know you, and to help out Hockeytown however I can.
And that the Jack Adams article, you got that slated for like maybe late December, early January?
Hey, listen, I'm with Winging It in Motown. I'm not editor in Leaf. I'm not gonna pull a Austin Matthews' scoring is better than Wayne Gretzky's record. You know, we're gonna be a little realistic here. He's only gonna win the Jack Adams probably twice in his career.
All right, perfect. All right. This was an absolute blast. I'm glad to have you. We clearly need to have a Witcher conversation at some point.
Oh, always.
But yeah, I hope we can have you on again. And yeah, it's an absolute blast. Great. I can't appreciate what you're doing here for Red Wings fans and for us selfishly right now enough. So thank you so much.
Hey, thank you for having me on.